Unlocking the Soul, hosted by Rob Simperman and produced by Simplify Films. Episodes cover mature and controversial themes. Consider this when deciding whether and when to watch.
38. Mass Ascension and the New Earth. The time is fulfilled, and the kingdom of God is at hand. Repent ye, and believe the gospel. Mark 1:15. One of humanity's oldest tales is that a better world awaits us. Maybe it's heaven, a paradise waiting after death, or maybe it's a state of mind, nirvana, once we escape the ego's torturous longings. But there are also legends of an actual transformation of the earth itself, a coming era of peace and unity, a symbolic return to the Garden of Eden from whence we were cast. These sound like the fanciful musings of bygone eras, irreconcilable with the practical, science-loving capitalists we've all become in recent centuries. Gone the way of the mythological gods, fairies, and those prophets cited in religious texts thousands of years ago. But I am here to assure you the story of a coming new earth is alive and strong, and if anything, gaining popularity in the modern age. One of the loudest voices on the new earth topic was the late Dolores Cannon, pioneer of regression hypnotherapy research. She literally wrote the book on the coming new earth a dozen years ago, which was always just around the corner in terms of timing. I explored her descriptions in the first Unlocking the Soul section. It paints a pretty grim time coming for humanity, as the old earth basically dies from our abuse and ascends, much like our own souls would after our own bodies die. But here I want to explain the more nuanced understanding I have gained from other sources since then. The first big concept is that it's not an old earth, new earth dichotomy. There are at least 3 paths available for us incarnate humans living in this age. And second, our souls have chosen which path we take before we were born into this life. The wheels are already in motion. So let's start with what I found to be a very clear explanation from Sarah Breskman-Cosme, author of A Hypnotist's Journey to the Secret of the Sphinx. As a protege of regression hypnotherapy pioneer Brian Weiss, and a student of Julia Cannon, Dolores Cannon's daughter, Cosme's regression hypnotherapy subject shared fascinating information in just the last couple of years, so it's some of our most up-to-date information. She says our first option is to stay and rebuild a new society here on planet Earth, a higher frequency or fifth density version of this planet. She says, quote, "This world will become a different type of world. It will not remain the old world. Those who have humility will look to create something new on this earth here." Note the word humility there reminds me of Jesus saying that the meek shall inherit the earth in Matthew 5:5. Next, I asked Guy Needler to help us understand what it means for our current planet to rise in frequency and to be considered a new Earth.
So, getting back to it, this explains what the new Earth is all about. Because it's not specifically a new Earth in a different location. Geo-universally, it's the same planet in a higher frequential level, with different content because it's higher frequency. Right now, we can't see the frequencies above, basically X-rays or radio waves or in the terahertz range, for example. But there is existence there. And we know there's existence in higher frequencies, or should say that the higher frequencies exist, because we use them every day in our telecommunications. You know, a couple of 100 years ago, we thought that the radio waves were the ether. We used to call it the ether, you know. But now we know that there's something we can't see, touch, taste, and smell because we've developed machines that allow us to see it. So, moving into the new Earth. The new Earth is the Earth and its content and those individuals who've ascended into the 4th frequency. So the 4th frequency is based upon what's here and in that location, although people will focus on what's there rather than what's here. So they'll be able to see and communicate with other entities or other human beings who've ascended to the 4th frequency level, the new Earth, and it's being populated by people who've ascended. People like us stay here to help others ascend. So we're staying in the old Earth that's self-destructing, basically. But we move into this new Earth, which is the next frequency. And so these individuals will start to disappear from our lives, basically. They'll either suddenly we just think they've moved out of our lives by moving location, but they haven't. They've moved up in the frequencies. We just don't see them, and they will be focusing on the individuals of their frequential levels. So they won't be interested in people who stayed on the third frequency level. But that's on New Earth. The fifth frequency is another New Earth. Again, people in the fourth frequency New Earth will evolve and ascend to the fifth frequency, and they'll move from that version of the Earth into the next version of the Earth. And all of these different Earths, of which there's another 9, there's 9 in total, plus ours, which is 10, which occupy the 12 frequencies of the physical universe, are there for us to evolve into should we desire to do so or need to do so. But they're all there. They're all in the same space. It's just that they're separated by frequency. And that's what the New Earth is. Dolores talked about it as being, that's where we're going to. It's being populated. Yes, it is. As we ascend, we populate it.
Now, the second major path is for souls to move on from the planet Earth to continue their journey on a different planet altogether. Quote, some people will ascend, and some have ascended already. These people are meant to leave our earthly bodies and begin work on a new planet that is separate from this planet. Their spirits are traveling there to begin this work. So just to be completely clear, this path is describing a different planet altogether. This new planet is one that's being refreshed for us to repopulate. Scrubbed, if you will. You can picture Noah's great flood or the cataclysm that erased Atlantis, if it helps. Sarah Cosme asks, why is there a new Earth away from this one, and is told by her subject that the new world that we are seeding now, to which some are ascending currently, is actually the home planet for many humans. She describes a cycle wherein souls left that planet to populate this Earth with a plan to repopulate the previous planet after it had enough time to regenerate and heal. She describes this Earth like a summer home where we wait out that cleansing period. So in my interview, I asked Guy Needler about the path of interplanetary seeding projects. Listen to his take on it.
There's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of planets in this particular galaxy that's capable of supporting humanoid life. There's a number of different civilizations on the planet that have come before us, world civilizations, who have evolved beyond the need to stay here, or they've moved off the Earth, either physically or frequentially. The Mayans have moved up frequentially. That's why there's very little evidence of ever being here, because everything they had moved up the frequencies with them. So there are civilizations on the Earth that have moved off planet physically, definitely. But most of what's happening now is moving off this frequential level on the same planet, and it's being occupied that way. Humankind is too diverse to have come from the same planet. There's been lots of different seedings from different locations around the local galaxy and other galaxies to try to put in a similar form factor into this environment to support the fluctuations in frequencies. And what we've got now is a combination of them all, those that have survived.
It all sounds pleasant enough so far, but we're told the third choice is to stay here in the lower frequency or third density, beyond this Earth as a caretaker. 39. The crash and burn Earth. The subject of Sarah Breskman Cosme tells us, some have chosen not to ascend in this lifetime. They have been sworn, like almost taking an oath, to see it through to its death, and they will do so, and they will usher it out, and that will make many people uncomfortable, but that's their role. Understanding mass ascension as 3 paths cleared up a lot of conflicting accounts I've heard about what it means to partake in mass ascension or move to the quote-unquote new Earth. Often the disagreement was because some referred to the rising frequency of this Earth, others the separation between the low and higher frequency versions of this Earth, and others are talking about the sister planets being populated by many humans who live on Earth previously. Now let's dig a little deeper into the experience we can expect when the Earth separates in frequency. And you'll start to understand why there's so much confusion and conflicting information about the planetary ascension and the caretakers who remain. I figured we need to hear from a real expert on the new Earth, so I'm going to put my questions to Maureen St. Germain. Maureen is an intuitive and a mystic. As a best-selling author, she literally wrote the book on waking up in 5D. She writes about accessing the Akashic records and numerous topics related to spiritual awakening. She's taught in 24 countries, her books are published in 12 languages, and she even founded the St. Germain Mystery School to share practical skills that help everyday people seek guidance from their own higher selves. So Maureen, welcome. So is 5D a personal mindset, or something that the New Earth is moving to en masse by some deadline?
I do not see it happening en masse, and the Earth has already ascended. We are catching up. So what that means is we're moving into our ascended self, which is the 5D self, and every one of us is sliding into 5D and back out again, which brings you back to that very first question that you asked, what's it like to be in 5D? And the answer is pretty yummy until something happens to knock you up. You know, if somebody random, you hit somebody in the rear end. Let's say you just, lost track of what you were doing and accidentally rear-ended them. Maybe it wasn't a big collision. After all, you weren't moving that fast. So the other person and the other driver comes up to you and reads you the riot act in a very mean way, maybe using profanity and so on. That might knock you up. You might take it in 5D and then later go, man, that guy was really nuts. And you process it then, but you are not finding yourself reacting to other people's anger or frustration. And later, if you're needing to process it because they hit you on a raw spot, you might be, I'll use the word, a little bit down for a little bit, maybe slide into fourth, and then back up, but you won't stay there very long. The more you practice being in 5D, the more likely you are to remain there. And there's lots of ways that we can take steps to improve the likelihood that we stay in 5D.
Maybe you could expand on the comment you made about the Earth already having moved to 5D and we're catching up. I know there's a lot of writing about the Earth splitting and there being a 3D Earth with people left behind on it versus a 5D Earth.
Okay, so your question is well placed. This is really hard for people to grasp. My guides have said there are 3 Earths. One crash and burn, one with the do-overs, the people who are good people but just haven't accepted that they're bigger than what they are, that they have a God spark that allows them to be co-creator in their universe. And then there's the people who are ascending, who are focused and working with a source and doing their own spiritual work. Now, what I want you to think about, and I can see this on your face, we got to give up the linear model. It's not linear. And so when we give up the linear model, then we don't have to think about sequence or time. And instead, we understand that everything is happening at once and can influence other things. And so as we become fifth dimensional, a number of things are happening to us. Number one, we're taking timelines that we have chosen and weaving them back together into one whole experience. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you make a decision, let's say a big decision about which college to go to, and you've been accepted at several, the good second choice is a timeline that you follow. And you might not be aware of it. You might dream that you went to the other school. But that timeline, the road not taken, is in the reality. And then you merge those. When you completely give it up, your attachment and desire around that decision, then those energies fade into your current timeline. Now, if you were in the college of your choice thinking, oh man, I should have gone to the other school, this is not working for me, I don't like the place, I don't like the people, blah, 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 then you're keeping that alternate version alive until you make up your mind whether or not you're going to transfer in. And the same is true with regret. When we regret something, we're funding the alternate timeline.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the crash and burn Earth, I'm sure that's going to get a lot of people's interest. Can you describe that a little more?
Yes. Well, there will be, I'll use the word clones or other versions of you on those timelines that will have some of your energy in it, But depending upon where you put your own focus, that's where you'll reside. So you could have more than one version of yourself. We already see that in timelines. And it's the same would be true in the crash and burn. You would slowly fade from that system and put all of your energy in the one you are in. And I've also been told that the do-over Earth and the ascending Earth are going to be able to interact for 3 generations. It's not like, on July 4th, we celebrate Independence Day here in America. It's more like people will have a chance to shift and change their belief systems. We're going to gradually shift. Now, if you think back on how or when you learn sex education, there's a big, I'll call it paradigm shift, because a lot of children either learned it on the streets or they learned it in school. They didn't hear it from their parents. So it wasn't as safe an environment as it could be. And there's the shock factor. Oh my God, that's how a baby gets made? It's like, it's that, what I would call cognitive dissonance. That's the first time humans have cognitive dissonance, is when they discover the thing about sex. So what will happen is the cognitive dissonance will be very gentle. At one time, the beings of light that I communicate with shared with me that they were concerned about what I would call meltdown energy of people hearing something very unusual and then being so terrified by this new version of the reality that they literally, had a mental meltdown. Some people are so wedded to the idea that the Earth is the only place in creation that has a life form. You could see, whereas if they discovered other beings or had one knock at their door, they might have a meltdown if they were really stuck in that belief system. And what makes people stuck in a belief system is very interesting. It mostly is a safety net. If I do everything you tell me to and you promise me I'll get to heaven, I'll feel safe because I trust you.
40. Planetary Ascension. Next, I felt like we needed to shed some more light on what this planetary ascension is going to feel like. So I asked Guy Needler for more information from his channeled discussions with the source and origin entities, which are pretty much the closest personalities to all that is, or God, that I've come across in channeling sources. Here's how they describe it.
And my understanding is, from my meditations and from communicating with source and origin, and some of the other entities that are really high frequency, is that we'd actually surpassed where we were supposed to be on the 12th of the 12th, 2012, several months earlier, like in February of the same year. But because it was an individualized level of ascension, not a mass sort of cliff face ascension, where everybody suddenly becomes, self-aware and awake. People were getting aware and awake slowly and in their own way and gradually. So we became, over time, normalized to our level of advancement. So it's a little bit like getting into a bath of tepid water that's the same temperature as our body. We get into the bath, we notice no difference. And then if we suddenly start to heat the water up, we don't notice the water's being heated up, do we? It's so slow, it becomes, the body heats up with it, so it's still tepid to us, it's still the same heat. But if we were getting dropped into a bath of water where it's super hot first, we jump out again quickly. And people expected this level of ascension, but actually it's not mass ascension. It's more like individual ascension. But we've progressed so slowly that we don't notice it, and it becomes normal. Every day it becomes normalized until suddenly somebody might say something and say, well, actually, I think in that way, and I pick up information intuitively more than I did previously. Maybe I am ascending. Maybe I have moved up the frequencies. And it's only when somebody from outside tells us that we're more connected, we start to think, yes, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Maybe I have ascended. And maybe you're starting to experience things and observe things that are outside of the visual range of the physical eye, because you're now perceiving things on the next frequential level up, which is the lower astral, the fourth frequency. Where we are right now is a combination of 3 frequencies together that creates the gross physical, what mankind calls the third dimension, which actually is just a metric for volume. we've started to, really move up so slowly that we don't understand what we are, because it's been normalized. And when we understand that we've actually moved up from there to there because we've shown the difference in ourselves, then we realize that there's never going to be a mass ascension. There'll be an acceleration, but never this sudden cliff edge movement upwards, because it's not stable. And you only have to have a few souls start to, shall we say, disbelieve what they're experiencing, because they are seeing things that are strange, and then maybe they're thinking they're going crazy or mad or psychotic, because they start to see other entities that are also existing in the next frequency up, that they start to disbelieve it.
Interesting to hear so much agreement from Guy Needler, Maureen St, Germain, and Sarah Cosme's subjects, despite their different sources and perspectives. They all tell us that we'll avoid a sudden cliff face shock through a gradual layering on of higher frequencies over our current experience. But both say that some will remain behind as long as possible to make sure everyone is aboard the lifeboats. This sounds like a big deal for humanity, but it may be an even bigger deal than that for the universe. Let's take a look at what's at stake here. Sarah Cosme's subject tells us, but once this chaos is over and this ascension has taken place, we can begin the truth in this new world here on this earth. Then we will rebalance. We will rebalance as a population over time with a less alarming rate of growth that'll be naturally more sustainable. It will allow us to create a homeostasis for the way that we begin to create our future on this planet. The future of this earth will be a great time for equality and growth. When do you see that happening? This is all happening now. We're told that humanity is the only incarnate species given unfettered free will and consequences instead of some form of collective mind or committee decisions. However, as a result of our free choice, we have lost our full connection to our souls. The result was a slide down the frequency scale, similar to how Atlantis, Eden, and other races of humans have before us. However, we are too important for the universe to let fail. Guy Needler's channeling of the source entity tells us, raising Earth's vibrational levels is of the utmost importance. In support of this, many other intelligences are also helping to increase the vibrational levels. The Earth can be considered as a piece of important circuitry in a computer. Without its circuits being complete, it does not work properly, and it doesn't allow the rest of the circuit, the ley lines or the wormholes, to the other stars and planets to function. He goes on to explain that if the Earth experiment in individual freedom and thought is ultimately successful, it will be expanded and increase the rate of evolution and experience across God's creations. But no pressure. And even if the Earth is painted as a linchpin of frequency, we aren't alone in this type of planetary evolution. Cosme tells us, every Earth planet along this trajectory passes through a stage of duality in its infancy. That's just the way that it works. There are versions of your planet along each step of the ladder, so to speak, but once a planet reaches a certain frequency, it then jumps to a higher step of the ladder, a higher dimension. This is just the way that evolution works for these planets. It's how my planet evolved. Life on Earth would be very different if lifted to its intended level of frequency. The origin described in Needler. Deserts would become fertile again. The weather would reflect ideal conditions in terms of temperature and precipitation. Beings of all kinds that have been forced to hibernate due to the low frequencies would awaken and tend to the needs of the Earth. The Earth would come alive again and pull up humanity with it, reaching harmony with the animals and plants and each other in a virtuous cycle. And the source entity tells Needler that they are helping our scientists develop a free and limited source of energy, saying, imagine a world where all is in total harmony, one where everyone has a job to do and is content doing that job. Envision a world where we are all helping each other to reach perfection in doing what they do. We're told that with the frequency of the Earth rising, our minds are able to manifest our thoughts more quickly. That has both positive and negative effects. As our creativity is accelerating, we have to be extra vigilant about our destructive and harmful beliefs as well. So FDR may have been spot on saying the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So will the Earth no longer be a schoolhouse for souls in the future? Well, most spiritualism sources agree that the Earth is a schoolhouse for soul development, and an especially challenging one at that, due to its low frequency and detachment from our higher selves and source while we experience life here on Earth. So if the Earth ascends to a higher plane, will it continue to be the rigorous schoolhouse of the lower frequencies? Actually, no, at least not in the same way. But it will take on a new role as an enlightened community of more advanced souls. So anyone with unfinished karmic lessons and a frequency too low to ascend to the new Earth would have to complete their work elsewhere. Dolores Cannon tells us that such in-progress souls can rejoin the new Earth when they're ready. There's no blame or stigma aimed at them for doing so. You can imagine it like a high school converting to a college. So the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders this year would need to transfer elsewhere, but they may come back when they've passed the prerequisites to be admitted to the new college that now occupies the building of their old high school. As we move to the next layer of depth on this New Earth topic, let's clarify that not everyone goes to the New Earth. As Sarah Cosme's subject tells us, no, not everyone has chosen that. Everyone chose and made their decision before their incarnations. While you do have free will to alter things, you are not able to alter your decision to ascend to this separate new world or not. So the people ascending to this new world made those decisions before they came in? Yes, because there's a very specific and detailed process required before beginning this new world. Then why aren't people disappearing from the Earth as they ascend? Well, they are, but nothing so dramatic as a rapture is necessary. In fact, the process is so subtle that we often don't notice it, for a few reasons. First, all souls have worked out their potential exit points in advance. These are events worked into the bigger plan of life and the Earth, part of the Akashic record, so they are seen as normal deaths. Seth, as channeled by Jane Roberts, reminds us, no epidemic or illness or natural disaster, or stray bullet from a murderer's gun, will kill a person who does not want to die. With an epidemic, biological, sociological, or even economic factors may be involved in that for a variety of reasons and at different levels, whole groups of individuals want to die at any given time, but in such a way that their individual souls amount to a mass statement. So when there are deadly pandemics like COVID-19 and wars with huge casualty numbers like in Ukraine, those are planned mass exit points. These mass exits are available for those who have chosen to leave their bodies and ascend or join the new world. Large quantities of unexpected or unexplained deaths around the world would be investigated and raise questions. Sarah Cosme's subject provided much insight into the role of the pandemic in recent years, saying that not everyone who died in the pandemic is part of Ascension, but that was one of the purposes of the virus. Another purpose was to further the unsettling that further breaks down society, which, combined with questioning it causes, is what creates the new world on Earth. But with the fear and mass events, that gives rise to the next leap forward for humanity. Let's explore more deeply how to think about the high and low frequency souls coexisting on Earth, and what types of people and souls actually get left behind and why.